Hi, I'm Anne Geddes here at Blonde Studios in New York City. I'm sure people know that I've been photographing babies and pregnant women, life actually I'd like to call it, for the past 40 years. And it's a bit frustrating only being able to give 5 tips because I could probably give everyone 50 or so. If I'm limited to 5 tips, here's number 1. I don't know if you guys have heard of the KISS principle or whether it's an Australian thing. It's something that I've said to myself all the time over my whole career. Keep it simple, stupid, meaning me, right? And I think it's critical in terms of my sort of photography, right? You don't overcomplicate things. You've got a baby, that's your gold, and you've got your camera. And whatever happens in between there is an element of something else. But don't crowd out your gold, that little baby. The beautiful things about them, 6 to 7 month olds, their gorgeous big tummies and their heads are still too big for their bodies. You've got it all there in front of you. So the KISS principle. All right, number 2, and I say this a lot, when you're photographing babies, just do one thing well. Don't try and do too much with them. And I know there's a lot of newborn photography where they do different poses and all that sort of thing. That's not what I'm referring to. When you've got like an older baby, like the 6 to 7 month olds, who I really love photographing because they've been horizontal for 6 months and now they're vertical, and it's like, oh my God, there's a different perspective on the world, right? But you've got them there, just do one thing well. Don't try and push them into, performing at all, because they don't perform. And that's one thing that everybody loves about photographs of babies, is that they're completely honest. What you see is what you get. If you've got a smiling baby, that baby is definitely happy. And which leads me into tip number 3. Don't photograph with blinkers on, right? You've got to look for the magic. And this image behind me here of this little baby Philippa in the roses, it's a great example of that, if I can tell the story, because it was shot in New Zealand. We're Australian, but we lived there in New Zealand for 18 years. And that's where most of my early images were done. And this was actually a portrait. And Philippa was 8-9 months old, and her mother had a beautiful rose garden. And I was doing a call beforehand, just to check in and let's talk about what we're going to do. And she said, well, I've got all these gorgeous roses, it's the right time of year. And I said, well, bring a bunch of roses or bring a whole lot of roses. And so she turned up with buckets full of roses, right, all dethorned. And little Philippa was sitting on the carpet in my reception area when I went in to say hello. And she looked up at me with that beautiful smile that you can see. And her mother said, oh, I hate it when she smiles like that, it's so cheesy, right? And I said, well, that's just great, right? And she said, well, if that's what you want, all you need to do is smile at her like that and she'll copy you. Which isn't easy when you've got a baby lying underneath where I was, up shooting through a hole, on a table with all of these beautiful roses, and she's lying there and I'm up there with a camera in front of my face, of course, then doing the smile, and she's looking at me like, you're mad, you're a crazy woman, right? And then all of a sudden she did, and it was just like that once, and that's the magic, right? You've got to think about, if you're photographing babies and little children and so on, just be ready for something that can just come out of the blue, right? And if you're thinking, I want the baby to do this, then you're not looking out for the magic. So you snatch the magic out of the air. My 4th tip, and it's very, very important, is safety is paramount on set, right? Whether you're photographing a baby at home or you're photographing a baby in the studio, always have somebody that you trust with the baby, always, right? And I have always used the same people when I'm shooting, and if we've got multiple babies, there's always someone standing right there and looking at the baby. And she doesn't take her eyes off the baby. It doesn't matter if somebody calls her. she just watches that baby, because I need to know that when I'm walking away to my camera, that everything's just going to be fine. So safety is paramount. This is tip number 5, and it was key to my development as a photographer in terms of the books and calendars and greeting cards and everything. Because I did portraiture, and only portraiture, private portraits, for the first 10 years of my career. And anybody who is photographing young children, babies, young children, all of the time, it knows that it can be difficult, it can be stressful, and tiring as well, like when you're dealing with 2-year-olds and 4-year-old brothers or sisters and that sort of thing, right? And as I got to be more well known for my work, then I was able to charge more, and then the pressure is on me to keep producing the result. And so, to stop myself from going a little bit crazy, I said to myself, one day a month, you are going to do a photograph just for you. And it just got me out of that slog of, 2 portraits a day and so on, and stretched my creativity, because I said to myself, you have the discipline, one day a month, just for you. And that's where the famous image of the little twins in the cabbages came to be. That was one of the first images. And then there was also a black and white image of a little baby hanging in some calico on a hook. His name is Joshua. I remember taking home a print from that shoot of Joshua and putting it on my dining table and looking at it and saying, I really like that, and it doesn't matter if nobody else likes it, it's just for me. So what you need to do is have the discipline to take one day a month to do something with your creativity that you haven't done before. So there are my 5 tips. So I hope these 5 tips inspire you. And just go to my website and my Instagram. I've just started a storytime series where I'm talking about all the stories behind the amazing images, like 123 babies in flower pots and so on. So keep a lookout for that, and good luck with your career. Always make it come from the heart.